going to talk about how to input your data from on SPSS. So we will talk about two things today. We will talk about how to input the data from scratch, and another thing is how to transfer your data from Google Form. For instance, if you have used online survey platforms such as Google Form, and then how you transfer the data that you have collected through Google Form to your SPSS. All right, so let's start with opening the SPSS. So we're going to start from the very beginning. I hope I can take you by the hand to really understand the whole idea of inputting the data on SPSS. So once you have this window on your screen, you can just simply click new dataset here. But unless if you have already opened some files, created some files, then you can just look up where the files are from the recent files window here. So let's pretend that we again start from scratch. So we click new dataset, double click, and this is what we have. Okay, again, I'm going to show you the first way first, starting from the scratch on SPSS, and then next one we will talk about it as soon as we finish with this. Okay, so again, look that we have two types of view on SPSS: data view and variable view. Variable view is something, it's like a blueprint. So data view is if you want to look at your data here. Let's say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So just pretend these are your data set. These are just random numbers. So this window here, data view, is where you want to look at your data. Okay, so let me just erase this first. But I always start from variable view. Why? Because again, I want to set up a blueprint that I can sort of rely on, so I know what's going on in data view. For instance, like I just did now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that I don't know which variable it is, and then these numbers refer to what values, what kind of qualitative data from these numbers that I can gain understanding from. So this might be confusing. Maybe if you only have a couple of variables, then it would be fine. But if you have a lot of variables, long list of variables, then it's just gonna get messy. So again, I always suggest to start from variable view here. The one on the right, variable view. Now, we're trying to make a blueprint. So in any kind of survey, I think there are always be some kind of demographic questions, right? Demographic variables are variables attached to individuals, no matter who your individuals are or who your participants are. For instance, age. Regardless of which participants you will get involved with, you will have age from each participant. You will have gender, or sex, sometimes they call it. You also have level of education, level of income, etc. But at least let's keep it down to only two demographic variables, just to keep it simple, because this is just an example. So let's say I have two variables of demography. One is age, and the other one is gender. See how nice it is? And then if you go back to data view, you see here, you got your age, you got your gender. If you look at, if you go back to Excel, think of how Excel is laid out. It's pretty much similar, where you have on the top of your column, you have your names of variables, and below the name of variables, you have all your data in relation to the name of the variable. So it's nothing new. It's just the way we set up is kind of new on SPSS. So again, go back to variable view. We got age, we got gender. Now you will wonder what these columns are for. So age, definitely. So type. The second column is to the SPSS basically asks you what kind of data that you will have for this variable. Obviously, age is usually uses numbers, so it's fine. Now gender, it's sometimes can be a numeric. So for instance, 1 for female and 2 for male. But let's say you don't want to have numbers as gender. So you want just to have straightforward words. Male as male, female as female. So instead of numeric, you can just choose string. So here, string characters. If you have a long words, then you can just add the characters, the number of characters here. But if you just have, let's say, male or female, I think 8 characters should be enough. So choose string and click OK. And then the width is just the width of the variable. Decimals, obviously, if you have string variable that is qualitative variable, then you don't need decimals. But here, so it means 2 decimal places at the end. But if you want 3 or 4 or 5, then you can just move it up depending on your necessity. So, and label is basically just kind of remind you again what age refers to. So age of respondent, for instance, gender of respondent, right? So it may seem a little bit redundant, like we got age already, then why do you need a label? So well, you don't really need a label for this, but I just want to show you the whole setup. But and this might come handy when you have variables that are abbreviated. For instance, I have item 1 and I, instead of just write the long sentence, I shall just item 1, right? Then if you have a long list of items, you tend to forget what item 1 refers to, what item 2 refers to, what item 10 refers to. So it's nice to have this column label to just sort of remind you again, item 1 is talking about what, and the other items talking about what. So values are age. It can start from 0 up to 100, so we don't really have values here. But let's say you have some kind of Likert scale or some kind of measurement or questionnaire that uses rating scale. So respondents are asked to provide from 1 to 5 options. Then I think it's nice, for instance, this item 1 is, let's say, opinion, for instance, opinion about legalization of marijuana, for instance, right? So the values is, for instance, the respondents are asked to rate themselves on 1, starting from 1 to 5 option categories. So it's nice to let SPSS know what 1 means or what 2 means. Again, it's also good for you to be reminded constantly, but also it's nice when you have some kind of calculation later on, you will understand, okay, what 5 refers to, what 2 refers to. So value 1, label, let's say from 1 to 5, from strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. So strongly disagree, and then you put add, and then value 2, disagree, for instance. Again, these answer categories depend on which measure you use, okay? So neutral, and 4 is agree, and 5, strongly agree. There you go. So, okay. So whenever you go back to your data view, for instance, see you have age, gender, see the icon difference here. The icon here, sort of like a rule looking icon that tells you that you're using a metric scale. But here, the the three what do you say this icon here, it tells you that you're using a nominal scale. So let's say you have age 27 and gender is female and item is 3, right? Again, whenever you forget, you can just go to variable view. Again, this is your data, your blueprint. You can just click values and okay, 3 means neutral. Okay, the specific respondent gives an opinion, it gives a neutral opinion on the legalization of marijuana. That's it. So see how nice it is laid out. Okay, this is still using the nominal scale. Then we can go all the way to the right, and you see here measure. Make sure that you click scale. All right. Again, now that you know, let's take a recap. One, you go to variable view to lay out the foundation of your data set, which variables are included. And then once you get all this done, you go to data view and start imputing the data. Always remember that whenever you choose what is it called, the numeric variable, then you cannot have a number of words in this column. For instance, you say female here is just gonna be completely removed by the SPSS. Also, one here, it can be a number here, but then it will not make sense because you already chose a string variable for this particular variable. But let's say, for instance, you don't want, let's just have another variable of gender. Let's have gender 2. So it's basically the same as this variable, but this time we're not gonna use string. We are going to use numeric. So the label is gender of respondent using numeric. And then don't forget to have the values inputted in the column because you want the numbers that you will use to have a meaning, right? And you want to be reminded constantly what those numbers mean for. So value 1, for instance, for female, and then value 2, for instance, for male. That's it. So again, always remember in your head that whenever you have 2, that means for male, and 1 means for female, and so on. So that's the first way of inputting your data set. So now you actually have your blueprint of data set and also your data in front of you. Now let's say that you already collected your data from Google Form. Now, how to do it? Okay, so let's minimize this first, and then let's go to the Google Form. I have set up a very simple questionnaire. So this is just an example of G-form. Again, I always put demographic variables first, gender, age, and then here the instruction how to provide the answer for the participants. Please answer the following questions below by selecting the options above. 1, strongly disagree, up to 5, strongly agree. Will you vote during the pandemic? Let's say, just pretend gender male. Oh, this is me as the administrator. So, well, anyway, but I already have 4 responses. So, if you are the administrator of the G form, then you will have the same appearance as what I have now. And then you go to responses, and then you see there have already been 4 responses that responded to your questions. So, instead of download responses to CSV format, you click here, view responses in Google Sheets. So there you go. Now it's laid out very nicely here. You got gender, you got age, and this is actually agree is 4 and unsure is 3, right? So yeah, this was the first trial that I had before converting to the numbers. So we are interested in these 3 variables: gender, age, and will you vote during the pandemic? Okay, so now again we have age. Let me just clear this out first. Oh, you know what? But that's fine. Let me just clear out all this first. Just select and then right click clear, making sure that everything is cleared out. Yes, because you don't want something, if you have let's say insert one data and then suddenly you remove it, but then you forgot to clearly delete it, then SPSS will recognize this as a missing value. Is this there is data but has no value, so it might affect your statistical analysis later on. So we don't want that. We just right click and say clear, and that's it. It's all clean now. So we go back to our Google Sheet. So let's just copy this. We got gender and paste. There you go. We got age. Again, copy this as well. Here you go. And we got whether you would vote during the pandemic, and that's it. So again, male is 2, right? So again, you don't need to have 2 gender variables. I'm just showing you whether you want to have a string variable or you want to have a numeric variable. But either way is fine. So anyway, you got this. So there it is. You have your data transferred from Google Form. Again, it's pretty straightforward. I hope you have understood it pretty well by now.